Be'ezras Hashem. Hello, everybody. Today's daf is daf Chav Zayin. And today's daf, we're going to start from the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is discussing the Mishnah, the whole sugi today is Hashavas Aveda. Okay? So the Mishnah brings, someone brings a get. So he's a shliach, he's coming off the boat from Chutz La'aretz, and he's coming into Eretz Yisrael. So he brought a get, and now all of a sudden it's lost from him. So if it's lost from him, so now if the shliach finds it right away, kosher, then he can continue to give the get over to the isha. But if he doesn't find it right away, pasul, then the get is pasul. Wow. So first, the Mishnah doesn't define what's alter. What does it mean he finds it right away? Does it mean he finds it in an hour? Or does he find it in the next day? I don't know what it means an hour. What is the alter? But the other question is, what's the problem if he finds it after immediate? If it was non-immediate, if he finds it, let's say, a day later, what's wrong with that? Why is it pasul? So Rashi says that even though you find the get and it has the same name and has the same man's name and woman's name and city name, we chayshish that maybe this get fell from somebody else, and that's not your get that you're finding. Wow. And therefore, if you're going to give this get to this woman, it's not really her get. It says her name on it. It says the city name, but could be somebody. It was somebody who had the same name. So what are the chances of that happening? So we really need to understand why it should be pasul if you do not find the get right away. Says the Mishnah, mitzo'oi b'chafisa. If you find it in a flask, oy b'dulus kama, or you find it in a purse, imakirai, so you found it in a weird place that you know that nobody put it there. You must have put it there and you forgot that you put it there. So therefore, then, or imakira, you find it and you somehow recognize that this was you recognize by the way it was written, by the shape of it. So then the Mishnah says it's kosher. Okay, so it's only if you find it and you're not 100% sure it's your get, then if you find it immediately, then you can assume that this is the get that you lost. But if you find it not immediately, then it's pasul. So the Gemara asks a question. Ruminhi, let me ask you a stira. First, the way the Gemara goes is first it asks a contradiction between our Mishnah and somewhere else, and because of that, we can easily understand our Mishnah. Let's read the contradiction. There's a Mishnah that says, "Matza gite nashim." If you find, if somebody else finds a divorce, he finds a divorce on the street, a divorce document on the street, v'shichrurei avadim, or a get shichrur, a freedom document, a daisiki, or like a will from somebody who was on his deathbed, a shchimara will. Matanis, or a gift, a document that says somebody's gifting something to someone, v'shoivrim, or receipts. All these things, if you find it, the Mishnah says, harei lo yachzer. Even though there's a mitzvah of hashavas aveda, but if you find a get on the street, don't return it to anybody. Don't return it to the man, and don't return it to the woman. Why shouldn't you return it to the woman? Maybe she dropped her get. Shani oimer, because I will say, ksuvin haya. This actually was written. It's a good get. But the author, v'nimlach aleim shloi litnam, the husband thought about it and took back and said he changed his mind and he decided not to give it. So therefore, the Mishnah says, don't give it over to the woman if you find a get on the street. But what happens? We can be medayik from the Mishnah, ha'amatnu. But if you approach the husband and you ask the husband, should we give this get over to the woman? So then, of course, noisnan, we would give it over to the woman, and vafilu lizman meruba. Even if we know when the guy found it, he doesn't know how long it was lost. It could have been lost 3 weeks. It was laying there on the street. But the Mishnah says, if you ask the husband, your husband says, yes, I wrote that get, give it to the wife. You would give it over to the wife, even if it's a long time since it was lost. So the question is, that's a steer in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that the only time a get is kosher if it's lost, it's only if you find it immediately. But if you find it not immediately, it's pasul. And this brisa, this Mishnah, it's important. It's Mishnah says that even if you find a get, if somebody finds a get and the husband agrees that he wrote it, he can give it over to the woman, even though a long time elapsed since it was lost. So that's the question. Of course, I just want to point out to you, even though it could be that the husband is now being megarisher with this get, even though maybe he wrote it a long time ago. So we're not going to look at the zman of the get. At the time of the get, if she wants to collect her ksubas and lien on properties, you'll have to look at the time she received the get. But still, it's a kosher get, so it's a contradiction to our Mishnah. Answers the Gemara, Omar Rabba, and this is the key point. When our Mishnah is discussing when there's caravans, a lot of caravans. So it's like in and out, people are coming, it's a crowded area where you lost the get. So we can assume that's why if you don't find it immediately and then you find it, I might think that I would say that you found somebody else's get. And that person happened to have the same name as the man and the woman. When there's a lot of people around, it's not necessarily you found the get that you lost. That brisa that says that you could return it any which way, even if you find it a long time later, because the get was found she'ein shayaras mitzuyos, where there are no caravans present. It's not common that a lot of people pass through this area. So if it was lost, it's probably the same get that was lost. And therefore, even if it's a long time it was lost, you could give it over to the woman. So the key point in our Mishnah is that really the guy lost it in a very public place, like Grand Central Station. There, if he doesn't find it immediately, even if he finds it later on and seems to have the same names, the get is puzzled, because maybe we'll say you found somebody else's get who had the same name. And now the Gemara adds on another important point. Even if it was lost in a place that there's a lot of caravans, but there had to have been two people with the same name from that city. Because, in other words, the only time you're going to concern yourself that it might be somebody else's get is only if you know for sure that the city that the get was written had two people with the same name. Because then you can say that maybe you found the other person's get. But if you know for a fact that there was only one person with that name in that town where the get is written, even if there's plenty of people going through to the area where the get was lost, when you find it, you're almost certain that this was your get, because there's only one person with the name Yosef and Shimon in that town. However, if there were two of them, then the get would be possible, because maybe you found the other get. So here is the clear point in our Mishnah that says that the get is possible if you don't find it immediately, is talking about 2 points. Number one, you didn't find it immediately. That's clear. But number 2 and 3 is that there's a lot of caravans there. So obviously it's possible that you didn't find the get that you lost. Plus, in the city where the get was written, there were two people with the same name. So it could be you found a get with that belonged to the other person, and therefore this get is possible.
Why don't you find out if the other one wants to get, the other one doesn't want to get. Just her name.
Yeah, you're 100%. There's an excellent question. The answer is because in case you can't pick up the telephone and call him. Let's say you're in Eretz Yisrael and the get was written in Italy, and there's no telephone, so you can't know for sure if this. You don't know. You can't make sure that the other. Probably if you can make sure that the other one's not giving you get to his wife, you're right. But here we're not sure, so therefore the get is possible. The Eloi Teva Hachi, if you don't say so, Kasha da Rabba. I'll show you a question of Rabba against Rabba. That means if you don't say that Rabba added this point that you have to have Huchsuku, Shnei Yosef and Shimon, that there had to have been two people with the same name, it's not just Shayaris Mitzuyas, but you need two people with the same name, because you'll have a question on one story of Rabba to another story of Rabba. Listen to this story. Dahu Gita, the Shtakach Beidin de Rav Huna. There was a get found in the court of Rav Huna. Rav Huna's court was like Lahavdil, I don't want to say Lahavdil, but Rav Chaim Kanievsky's house. It's a public place. There was a get found there. A get was found there. Bahava Kasab B'zei, there was written that the B'Shaviri Masa Da'al Rochas Nahara, that the get was written on this place called Shaviri, which is right next to the river called Rochas, a very common name, common name of a place. It's placed as Shaviri. So the question was, they found it in the courtyard of Huna. So, and the guy, one person says, I lost the get. So V'amar Rav Huna said, don't return it. Maybe we shouldn't return it because although he says he lost the get, as she says she lost the get, but let us be concerned that there are two shviris, and we didn't find the get that she lost. Maybe we should say that. So that was Rav Huna's question, basically. Maybe I should not give her back the get, although you found it in my court, but there's a lot of people here. And maybe there's another place called Shviri, and this is not her get. So this was Rav Huna's conjecture. Rav Chisda said to Rabba, you research this matter. The ultra Rav Huna is going to ask you to paskin on this matter. So really look this matter over. So Rabba Nafak, the Ashka, Rabba went through the entire Talmud and he found something like this that says the Tanam. There's another Mishnah. Kol Maaseh Besdin. If someone finds any court document in the Besdin, let's say in the court, any court that, of course, a courthouse is where many people come. So if you find a document there, Hareze Yachzer, that you could return it to the person that says that it's his. Well, now, the house of Rav Huna. So basically, Rabba said, return the get to this woman, because that Mishnah says basically the same thing. Anytime you find something in a courthouse, you could return it to the owner. So the question is, the house of Rav Huna, the court of Rav Huna, is a public place. If that's enough to passel a get, so Rabba should have said you can't return it. But nevertheless, Rabba Paskin Yachzer. Rabba says you could return the get. So Alma, the reason why Rabba must have said you could return the get is because in that case, although it was Shayoris Mitsuyas, there was a lot of caravans there, but there was missing condition number 2. Yosef and Shimon Achaz in the Eloi. Only if you know for certain that there are 2 people with the same name in that city, then you don't return the get because maybe it was lost by the other person. But if you're not sure that there are 2 people with the same name in that city, you could return the get even though it's a public place where you found the get. And that's why he returned it, although he found the get in Rabba Huna's court. Now the Gemara says, the Gemara just says to back up its opinion about Rabba, that you need both conditions, Shayaris Mitsuyas, and also you have to know that there might be 2 people with the same name. And that only in that case you will not return the get. The Gemara says, Avid Ravda Uvda, Rabba did it in practice. Bahu Gita, there was a get, Ishtakach Be Kitana Bepumbedisa, that was found in the area where they do something to flax in Pumbedisa, and he returned the get. It was found in that pub area. Now, what's unique about the flax place where they process flax in Pumbedisa? So some say like this: Ika de Amri, some say Beduchta Heche de Torikitone. The get was found in the place where they actually soak flax. Ba'afagav the Huchsa, even though in Pumbedisa it's very likely you have 2 people with the same name. But if a person is claiming that this get belongs to them, you return it. Why? Because the Loishchicha Shayarasa, the place where they soak flax, is not a stop on the train station. In fact, you have to go out of your way to get there. So it's not a place where a lot of people come, and therefore you could return the get if the person says it's his or hers. The Ika and others say Beduchte de Mizabne Kitana. It's actually the get was found in place of the marketplace, where actually the marketplace is that they actually sell flax. And the reason why you returned it, because we don't know for sure that there were 2 people with the same name in Pumbedisa. even though shchichin shayarais, even though it was a caravan, a public stop, still we wouldn't return the get. So again, back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says if you don't find it immediately, it's possible to return. Rabbah learned that you need two conditions. The reason is because it's not immediately, plus it's a place where there's a lot of caravans there, so maybe the get dropped from somebody else. Plus, in the place that the get was written, there are two people with the same name, so perhaps this get belonged to the other person. The other Gemara says, Rab Zera Rami, Masnisna Baraisu Mishani. Rab Zera came to the same conclusion as Rabbah, or more or less, but he came to that conclusion via a question from our Mishnah to our Brisa. This is Rab Zera's version. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, maybe get vav and bimenu. Out there, kasha vimla apostle. That's our Mishnah. If you bring a get and you lost it, if you don't find it right away, it's puzzle. Uraminu, but then I'll have a steerer from a brisa. Matzah get isha b'shuk, not a Mishnah, but a brisa. Matzah get isha b'shuk, and you find a get in the street. Bisman shembal moidi yachsel isha. If the Baal says, I wrote the get, give it to the woman. Eina bal moida. If the husband doesn't agree, lo yachsel lo lezev lo lezeh. Don't give it to the woman because he says I never gave her a get, and don't give it to the husband because it's as Rashi explains that sometimes a husband holds on to a get as proof that he paid the ksuba. So maybe he'll come later on. If you give it back to the husband, he's going to bring Aiden that he actually gave her a divorce, and then she's going to try to collect the ksuba, and now he's holding on to the get and saying, no, I gave ksuba money. So this is a case where you find something, and the idea is not to return it to anybody. But you don't have to say it. The Brisa says it clearly. We go to Amid Beis, Bisman shal bal moide, but if the husband agrees, Mias Yachsel Isha, you do return it to the woman, even if it's a long time since it was lost, you would still return it to the woman. So that's against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says if it takes a long time till you find it, the get is puzzle. So Umashani, and that's what Rab Zera answered is similar to Rabbah. That our Mishnah is talking about there's a lot of caravans there. So therefore, because there's many people, maybe it dropped from somebody else. And that Brisa is talking about where there's not many, it's not a caravan, it's not a stop on the caravan, and therefore not many people are there. So if the husband says it's his get, and he agrees that he gave it to the woman, you would give it to the woman. So, but we make no mention about, does Rab Zera require huchsaku? Of ikadi amrei v'husha huchsaku hu delay lahadav ha'inu de Rabbah. Some say Rab Zera agreed with Rabbah opinion that you also need huchsaku. It's not enough to have shayaras mitzuyas, but you also have to have huchsaku that there were two people with the same name of the town. And Rab Zera agreed with Rabbah. Others say afagav loy huchsaku loy lahadar. Rab Zera is very strict. Even if you don't think that there's not two people with the same name in that town, you still will not return the get. Upligi the Rabbah, and he argues on Rabbah. Just the fact that the shayaras mitzuyas, that there's a lot of people coming back and forth, is enough to say that if you find a get, it's possible. You don't need to have huchsaku that there was two people with the same name. So Rab Zera argued on Rabbah, according to some. So the Gemara just cleans up this and says, Rabbah came to his conclusion by asking a question from our Mishnah to another Mishnah in Baba Metzia. So I understand, Bishlam and Rabbah Zera Masnisa Alime Lekshuya. Rabbah chose to come to his conclusion by asking a contradiction between our Mishnah and another Mishnah. That's the best way to ask a question. Two Mishnayos contradict each other. El Rab Zera, my time Rabbah. Why didn't Rab Zera probably knew all the Mishnayos? So why didn't he ask the same question as Rabbah? Answers the Gemara, Amalach, the reason why Rab Zera chose to ask a contradiction from a Brisa, because the Mishnah that Rabbah asked this question does not say, Miktanu tru noistin vafilas mamruba. It's only because you twist with your finger, you have this contradiction. It's not clearly stated in that Mishnah. The Mishnah doesn't say, if he would say tnu, if you say give it over, give the get over, you would give it even after a long period. Maybe that Mishnah is agreeing with our Mishnah that if the husband would say give, you would give it, albeit right away, not lizman maruba. So it's not such a definitive contradiction. But from the brisa that Rav Zera chose, it's more likely that it's more likely that when the husband says, I wrote the get, even if it's Lizman Meruba, you would give it over. Because if it's right away, what's the chiddush of the brisa? It must be Lizman Meruba. And therefore, it's teaching you, even Lizman Meruba, even if it takes even if it was lost for a long period of time, that is the chiddush of that brisa, that you would still return it. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah answered the contradictions in this way. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amet, it's a steerer from the Mishnah to the Brisa. One Brisa says the get is possible if you find it very long, and one Brisa says the get is, and the Mishnah says it's, and the Brisa says it's kasha, or the Mishnah says it's kasha. So the Rabbi Yirmiyah gave an answer like this: Kigoin the Ka'amra Eidim ma'olim loichasamnu el agate echad sheyosef ben Shimon. Eidim came and said, we know for a fact that we signed on one get that had the name Yosef ben Shimon. And therefore, once you have Eidim say that we only sign on one get, so then if that person claims that he is the Yosef ben Shimon, then we give it to him. We give it back to him. Now, that's why the Brisa or the later Mishnah say that even if it's Zman Meruba, even if it happened, even if you find it a long period of time after it was lost, you still return it. Says the Gemara, remember, what is the novelty of that? If the Eidim are saying we only signed on one, so you have no doubt that the guy is saying the truth, that this is his get that he lost. The Gemara says, Mahu the same, I would have thought, Leichesh Dilma Isrume Shma Kashma Ve'edim Ke'edim Kamash Malon. Maybe it's possible to have a get that had the same name, same husband, same name as the wife, same name as the Eidim, same city, but it's somewhere else, like Manhattan, Montana, or something like that. So it's possible we might have this, weiter chashash, little out of space concern. So that is the novelty, that we're not so concerned. Once you have Eidim say that, we signed in one, and this guy says this was the get he lost, we give it to him. Rav Ashi says, a simple reason why you give it to somebody. When the guy says that this is the get that he lost, or the woman says that this was the get that she lost, it's because they gave a siman. You're going to Kama, there's a hole by this letter, the Havale siman muvak, because it's a distinguished sign. So once you give a siman, then you know it's yours. Now the Gemara says, "V'dafka b'tzad ois ploinus." Only if they give a distinguished sign that proves that this was their get, the Havale siman muvak, because it's very distinguished sign. Of a neka ba'almo loy, if they just say that the get had a hole in it, that's not enough, because just because you bring a siman doesn't mean we return you your lost object, because misapka, we're not sure when is it simonim ideraisi derabonim. When you return an object to somebody who gives you a siman that says that proves that it belongs to him, it's a suffix if the reason why you're returning it to that person who claims he lost it, is it doiraisa because we trust simonim, or is it drabonim? It could be that we're returning it drabonim. Drabonim said if you give even a weak type of siman sign that it's yours, we give it to you. We trust you. But midaraisa, we wouldn't trust you. But hefka bezdin hefka, we give it to you. But to be mater and ashes ish, you would need a siman muvhak. You need a very distinguished siman. So that Mishnah or that Brisa that says you would return the get to the woman is talking about where she gave a super duper siman that it was hers. So once she gives such a siman, then we trust her and we give it back to her. Rabba Baba Chana, the Gemara says, Rabba Baba Chana, Irkes Legita Bebeid Medrash. It's unbelievable. Rabba Baba Chana was a shliach. He was a shliach to give a get to somebody. And I guess he started thinking about his learning, and Irkes Legita Bebeid Medrash. He dropped his get in the base Medrash. And they gave it back to him. He said, it's mine. Amar, he said, Isimon Isle Begave, if I have a simon, I can give you a simon that this was the get I lost. Itvias Eine Isle Begave. And if you trust me, I recognize it. Just even if I don't have a simon, I can tell that this was my get. So Ahadrun in relay, the yeshiva boys gave it back to Rabba Baba Chana. But Rabba Baba Chana said to himself, Lo Yadana, I'm not sure why they gave it back. Imishim Simon Adrub, is it because I gave a simon? Biksava Simonim deraisa, and they hold simon is the raisa. If someone gives you any type of simon, you have to give him back his lost object. because Rabbi Baruch Chana did not give a distinguished simon. He gave a little simon, but they gave it back to him because perhaps the yeshiva held that simonim is the raisa. As soon as you give a little simon, we give it to you. The Torah says give it back to its owner. Or perhaps imishum tvius eina. They only gave it to him because he claimed he recognized it. And v'daf getsuva midrabanan. Only a rabbi we would believe if they don't have a simon, but they say I know for sure that this is my get. We would believe them. But somebody else, Lloyd, we wouldn't trust that person, and we wouldn't give back that get. Okay, so that describes our Mishnah. Anyway, our Mishnah again discusses that you have two reasons why you don't give the get. You have two reasons, because the reason why you don't give the get back is because he didn't find it right away, and it was shayaris mitzuyos. Also, huchzaku shnei yosef ben Shimon. So let's finish up another 2 minutes. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught, the Mishnah says if you don't find it right away, the get is possible. So what is called not finding it right away? So let's say it was lost in Penn Station. So Rav Nasan you waited enough time for another caravan to pull up, and everybody gets out and camps there. So if enough time passed till another train pulled in, then that's called, and you didn't find it until then, that's called shloila alter, not immediately. Rab Shimon ben Elazar says everything is called immediate. It's always immediate. As long as you know for a fact that from the place that you lost it, no other person came there and stood there, then you can consider it immediately. So even if it's 5 hours later you found it, but as long as you know for certain that no other person stood there and somebody saw that nobody else passed there, that's good enough. Doesn't mean that nobody passed there, nobody, took a rest in that place. That's called immediate. Rabbi Yomi Gittin Daf again. The amount of time it takes to write a get. So how long does it take to write a get? Let's say it takes you 45 minutes to write a get. So that's up until 45 minutes. That's considered to be a immediate. After 45 minutes, it's too late. And so Rabbi Yitzchak says not only to write the get, but to read the get. So it might be 50 minutes. You need both. I'm sorry. Acherim said you need both. Rabbi Yitzchak says it's just to read the get. Now, Ba'afil Shah, even now that we just said that point, let's finish up over here. Ba'afil Shah, v'yesh boy simona me'idim olav. The Amrei nekav yesh boy b'tzad pointless. That even if a lot of time passed, but if he has distinguished simon, then we're allowed to give him back the get, because he said there's a hole in that letter in the get. There's a hole in that, so that's a very distinguished simon. Then you would give it back. The Eimei Idim says the Brisa. The Eimei Idim al Simone Guf. You cannot just give a general type of simon. The Amre, you can say, oh, this get that I lost was orach, was long. The gut's short. That's no good. What happens? Mitzoi kosher bekis ba'arniki betabas. Oi, we go to the top of Chavches, just a minute. Oishemotza ben Kalev afilas mamruba kosher. If you found the get tied up in a pouch, in a purse, or with a ring, or you found it amongst your items, like amongst your suitcases. Let's say you lost it, you don't know where it is, but then you opened up your suitcase, and one of your suitcases had the get. Even if a long time passed since the get was lost, kasha, it's kasha, because since it's found amongst your items, most likely that's the get that was lost. Itma, we learned Rabbi Huda Shmuel halacha shloisha adam sham. The halacha about the caravans, it means that you have to make sure nobody stayed there. Nobody passed by there. So why did they say the shear without saying who said it? In our brisa before, we said that Rabbi Lazar said Kadeshe Adam Oimich, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and the Yesh Oibru Shalai Shah Adam Sham. So they just repeated that the halacha is like each one of them, but they didn't say who said that halacha. And the Gemara answers because it wasn't clear. They had a different girsa in the brisa of who said what. So therefore, they just tell you the bottom line halacha is. The bottom line halacha is, according to Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel, is that what's not called immediate, you have to make sure that nobody passed by there. Then it's still considered immediately. Or according to the other opinion, nobody stayed there. One last point, mitzoy b'chapisa bedluskma. If you found the get in your flask or in your purse, then it's kosher. My chafisa, what's the word chafisa mean? A small flask. So you found the get in your small flask, it didn't come from somewhere else. It's your get. My deluskama, what's called if you find the get in a deluskama, that's your get. It's tlika de save. It's the purse for old people. So older people have this special purse. So these are special types of carry-on cases that you carried on your side. So if the get was found there, you can be well certain that it was not somebody else's get that you're finding. It was the get that you lost. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll continue the mission tomorrow.